Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith. I'm really excited to get back into Imperial Assault, the playthrough. Christmas was great, I hope yours was great, and we are going to get right back into this tutorial campaign for Legends of the Alliance. And where we left off in the last video, as you remember, we had this Nexu coming up over the wall at us, as well as we had a Stormtrooper just kind of positioned behind this kind of column here. He's already got 1 damage on him, so we still need a couple more hits to totally take him out. But our goal now is really to buy the Rebel Alliance some time as we take out some Imperials and then hopefully able to escape ourselves, I'm hoping. So let's take a look at what we should do next. Now, if we go back to the pad here, we can actually see that the next activation for the heroes in the top left-hand corner would be Jin. She's up next. So she's going to want to activate, and this is where we're going to want to determine where and how she should attack. Now, where she currently stands, she's got quite a nasty long shot, where we talked about this at the end of the last video, but her corners basically don't line up so nice as they go right through the ally player, and I cannot have a shot go through Garkin. And then of course we have another angle here where it still cuts through him. So that's not going to work. So her hitting that Stormtrooper is just not going to happen from where she's currently positioned. And in terms of actually hitting the Nexu further down the row, she can do it. She's got corners on them, but you have to remember we're going to need that accuracy of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is extremely high and very unlikely based on the 2 green dice she's rolling. You know, we want to get probably within 4 or 3 even. So we might want to get her even to about here. So she's got line of sight on whoever she wants to target next. So let's do that. Let's activate her. Again, we get 2 actions. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use her speed of 5 to get Jin a little closer to the action. So she'll go 1. Now the other debate too, just so you guys know, is we do have some crates back here. And it's hard to know whether or not those crates are worthwhile going after right now. They may have something that really is going to help us. It's tough to say. I don't know if I'm going to have the opportunity to essentially kill these off and then check out the crates before the app pushes us forward, or if I should be doing that right now. I'm going to go ahead and say that the threat is probably more something that we should focus on a little bit more. So I'm going to focus on those guys. So we're going to go and activate Jin. We'll go 1, 2, 3. So we technically still have some more movement for her. I could get her closer. So let's go 4. So we're closer and we have better chance of hitting on our shots. And then we remember that we can use up to our speed of 5. So we'll have 1 extra later on to just kind of step back if we feel like it. So at this point, we're going to have how do we want to do this? Let's have her take her shots from here, and actually I'm kind of debating actually going after the Stormtrooper and just getting rid of the Stormtrooper. So let's do that. Let's have her take the Stormtrooper out of commission. So from where she currently stands, she's got a much better vantage point now. As you can see, she's got corner there, and she's also got a corner here, and those 2 lines I just created, this one here and this one here, they don't intersect. So everything is fine that way, so we can go ahead and make an attack. Let's take a look at her abilities here. Quick Draw is no point in using this right now because this is when a hostile figure activates. Opportunist says after you resolve an attack, if the target suffered 1 or more damage, we can move 1 space, so we'll have an additional space to move on top of that, which is nice. So we can kind of get her, maybe we could even move her 2 and get her behind a barricade, whatever we want to do, because we have that still 1 movement point we didn't spend yet. So we'll see how that pans out in a minute, but for now let's just go ahead and use her blaster as we have in the past. We're going to roll 2 green dice, and of course in order to do this attack we need the defensive die of the Stormtrooper, so it's going to be a black one, which is fairly good. Stormtrooper already has 1 damage on him, and we just need 2 more hits in order to take this guy down. So here's hoping this pans out good. Now that's what I'm talking about. That is some serious damage. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We didn't get any surges, but you'll notice with the 2 defense, 2 take away the 4 damage we've made without any surges to talk about. We easily have the accuracy rating of 6. We actually could have, we couldn't have shot from where we currently were, but if we had moved 1 forward wherever we were, we could have actually hit the Nexu. We got a really incredible roll on that. I don't think the chances of hitting 3s are high. I think that's actually the highest roll you can possibly have on range. So we nailed it somehow. Sadly, we didn't need it. But we did hit 2 damage through, so 4 damage. Take away 2 is 2. 2 damage on the Stormtrooper is a total, with the 1 on it, is a total of 3. So this Stormtrooper is killed off. And that's exactly what we wanted to see, because we don't want them to activate and have 2 attacks against us. So her turn's now officially done. That was absolutely perfect. So good job, Jin, and she took care of that guy. So at this point, there's no more Stormtroopers on the map. So we're going to let the app know that the activated Stormtrooper group has been defeated, and they're no longer there. Now, technically, her turn is now done, but we don't want to forget about the fact that we have the Opportunist ability lets us move an extra space, plus the 1 extra move we didn't spend. So we got 2 movement. I'm going to have her sit around the corner here of this kind of wall. Now, we know that these type of monsters, regardless of where you're sitting, even though I'm behind this solid red line, this monster is sitting on top of a solid red line. This monster does not care about those and will literally sit on top of them. So you can think of it that he's essentially crawling over them and stuff like that. You're not going to be able to hide behind those red borders, those solid red borders. But I'll put her there just for the sake of it for now. Actually, you know what? I'm kind of wondering, do I want to push her back? Actually, you know what? He can take a lot more damage than she can. So you know what? Let's actually have her go back 2, so that the focus ends up being on Garkin versus Jin, because Garkin actually can take a lot more damage. So we'll do that, and we'll end her turn there. So now we're going to go ahead and end off her activation. We get, oh, it looks like it's going to activate the Nexu. The Nexu has a bleed keyword on its deployment card, which allows it to give the bleed condition to figures it damage with attacks. That's bad. So conditions like bleed are lasting effects. When a figure gains 1, place a token for that condition next to that figure. Each condition has a reference card that describes its effects, including the way in which it's removed. Some conditions like bleed and stun are harmful, as indicated by the trait on the condition card, and their purple color. Others, like focus, are beneficial, which are colored in green. Okay, interesting. So it looks like conditions are going to be purple colors, and it looks like yeah, that's really interesting. That's good to know. So let's take a look at the deployment card and see more about that. So you can see there's the bleed keyword that it was talking about right up top there. Now, if we go to our reference cards that we had set aside earlier, we can take a quick look through those to see if we can find it, because maybe there's some wording on it, although I'm sure the app's going to likely talk more about it, about what bleed does. It doesn't seem to be on these ones. There it is, last card, of course. So it says here, conditions such as bleeding, focused, and stunned are ongoing effects that are applied to figures when it gains a condition. Place corresponding. We went through this essentially. Then conditions can often be applied to figures when an attack is performed. Yep. The conditions applied after the attack. That makes sense. The target must suffer 1 or more damage for the condition to apply. It makes sense. If it's a beneficial, it's applied to the attacker. If harmful, it's applied to the target figure. Figure cannot be affected by multiple instances. Okay, that's good to know. So really the only piece that we didn't know was a figure cannot be affected by multiple instances of the same condition. So sorry about that, but I thought I would just point all the issues out with that one just so that we're clear. Now we'll go ahead and see what happens next. So it says some weapons and deployment cards have surge abilities that apply conditions. For example, the Royal Guards from the last tutorial had a surge ability stun. When such an ability is used, if the target suffers at least 1 damage during the attack, we talked about this just a few seconds ago, then that condition is applied either to the target of the attack if the condition is harmful, or to the attacker if it's beneficial. Makes sense. The Nexu is not required to spend a surge to trigger its bleed ability. Very cool. Actually, that's terrible for us. But it must do at least 1 damage to its target in order to for the target to become bleeding. And that just makes thematic sense. You can't just, he doesn't just start creating the bleeding condition against our heroes just for the sake of it. He has to actually inflict some type of damage, and when he does that, then that bleeding condition hits. So Garkin's Rage ability allows him to gain the focus condition when he suffers at least 3 damage during a single attack. A figure cannot gain a condition that he currently has, so Garkin cannot use Rage if he is already focused. Interesting. So any condition or even hero ability on the card here, you can see the Rage there says after attacking target is resolved, if you suffer 3 or more damage, you become focused. So let's say hypothetically that I became focused, then I couldn't again become focused on top of that. Once I'm focused, that's it. I can't use that ability again, because it's just going to give me duplicate of the same thing. Perform the Nexu's activation. Now remember that the Imperial figures can only perform 1 action with the star there and the arrow icon each activation. Alright, so I'm a little scared here. So here we're going to have to read this. First time I've ever actually moved the Nexu, so we've got a bonus here. It says at the start of this figure's activation, if this figure is in an exterior space, the figure gains 1 surge, and it is. So it's outside, and that's just an advantage tactically because the Nexu is probably more proficient being outdoors than indoors. It just makes logical sense. So an extra surge is given, and as we know, these surges can be bad. So we take a look at the priority list, and we can see there's a Pierce 2, there's a Cleave 1. It'll use what it needs to use in whichever order, going from top to bottom. That'll most inflict the worst possible pain on the heroes, really. So we'll go ahead and clean that up for now. We're going to be going back and referencing that in a second. In terms of its activation, which it will do, it has all these different things it can basically things that can happen. So the activation here says pounce. Place this figure in an empty space within 6 spaces and adjacent to 2 or more rebels. Then attack the rebel who has suffered the least damage. Interesting. So in this particular case, I'm kind of wondering something here, and this might be. I think positionally, I think I'm okay. I think I've actually put myself in a spot where I don't think the Nexu can actually hit both of us, so that's pretty good. Place this figure in an empty space within 6 spaces and adjacent to 2 or more rebels. Okay, so he's got a big movement there, and essentially his adjacent, he can only get to here. He's not gonna be able to get adjacent to Jin, so we actually moved Jin, and I did not know this going into this perfectly. If we had have actually moved her to here, she would have been, the Nexu would have been able to actually make this attack against both, but because we put Jin back here in a narrow corridor, the Nexu is a little bit trapped and can't actually get down to Jin. Garkin's kind of taking the brunt of the attack, so tactics-wise, we played that right, even though I didn't know that going into it. That worked out really well for us. It then says, then attack the rebel who has suffered the least combat damage. Now in this case, it's going to have to be Garkin because the Nexu cannot actually attack anything from range. It has the melee icon right here, so its attack is going to go against Garkin. So we're going to have to kind of think about this. There'll be some abilities that are going to trigger, but we know that Garkin has a black defense die, so we'll take that aside for sure. We have to remember his rage ability, which will trigger if he happens to take a ton of damage. The Nexu actually gets a red and green die, so we'll put those in that pool. And again, we have to remember the cunning ability here. While defending, apply +1 defense to the defense results for each evade. Now that's not going to catch us or come into play right now until we attack the Nexu, so we don't have to worry about that. So we're really just rolling these 3 and seeing what happens. So this should be quite interesting. Oh, that's not a roll, that was me dropping the die. Oh, let's see what happens. Here's hoping it's not too painful. Okay, interesting. So we've got a lot of things to resolve here. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is what's on the dice. Now, I guess the other thing we could talk about is the surge that it got for a bonus. So we don't want to forget about the bonus, so maybe I'll mention that before we talk about the dice. But I get a surge. So essentially, one of these 2 surges are going to activate for sure. And then if you look here, he's already got enough surges on the die to not even need that extra bonus. So regardless, he's going to end up using both of those surges, and he can't use the same surge ability twice. So even though I technically got 2 surges plus the free bonus one is 3, he's only going to use 2 of those, so it's not as bad as it could have been, but geez, that is still nasty. Range-wise, does not matter. He's making a melee attack against Garkin, so in this case, range means nothing. 3 damage is going to come against him. Now, what can these surges do to help him? He's got Pierce 2. So Pierce 2 is going to basically rip right through the defensive die that I rolled, which really sucks because it ignores a number of defense die equal to the Pierce value. So this die is essentially useless. There was no defense whatsoever on this attack. Nasty. The next up for the priority for the surge is Cleave 1, which is actually going to give him a damage. And I just have to double check on the reference card here what Cleave is. After the attack resolves, if the target suffered 1 or more damage, which he is going to, the attacker may choose a different hostile figure or object that he could target for an attack. The chosen figure or object suffers damage equal to the Cleave value. Oh, right, the cleaving situation. So now, does it have to be adjacent? That he could target for an attack, so he can't. So essentially, if Jin had been here, this cleave would have done what essentially Garkin's cleave could have done to the Stormtroopers in the prior video, and did essentially by hitting them. But because we strategically or just happened to be very fluky and lucky, put Jin a little further back, this cleave ability is not going to come into play, and it's not going to hurt us this time, thank goodness. But now we know that, and we're not going to want to keep these guys together. We're going to want to separate them because this Nexu does damage in close proximity with multiple heroes. But regardless, let's talk about the damage here is left over. So 1, 2, 3, that's how much damage is actually coming through. I have no defense because, as we talked about, the surge killed off one of my dice, or 2 of the defense. Now we're going to talk about rage here. So on Garkin's card, it actually says, after an attack targeting you is resolved, if you suffer 3 or more, you become focused. So you get this token right here. So this is what Garkin's going to actually receive for having the rage ability. Now this rage ability, as we mentioned earlier, says after the attack targeting you is resolved, if you suffer 3 or more damage, you become focused. So first off, we got to put 3 damage on him in the first place, which we're going to do right now. So we're going to grab 3 damage tokens from up here in our pile, and we're going to put them down here on Garkin's tokens card, although it's kind of getting a little crowded, but there's 4 damage because there was one already here. He's going to gain this focus token. What does this do? This is going to essentially give you, and the color of the actual focus token is green, so it's a nice reminder that way. But essentially on the next, whether it's a skill check or an attack, you're going to roll an additional green die. So really it's just going to allow you to become a little bit better than what you were before because you're now focused. So that's cool, and we can't forget about that, so we'll put it right on his vibro axe, because when he uses it next, which is likely to be the next thing to be used or triggered, we'll be rolling an additional green die. And if we really wanted to, we could even pull a green die off to one of these other characters and put it beside it so we don't forget. But for now, we'll just use this. Maybe I'll even leave this right here so we don't forget to roll it when we roll the dice. So regardless, he now becomes focused. We put the damage on him. He's definitely not dead. He has 14 health plus the 10 health, that extra health, because we're playing 2-player or 2 heroes in solo mode. So we took the attack and we're okay, but this is the first of 2 different things that this Nexu can do on its turn, but it cannot do the same action with a star and an arrow beside it, so it can't do another pounce. It has to skip that because it did the first one. We don't need this priority here anymore. We can move down to the next one. So it says move 3 and reposition 3. So again, this thing is a melee character. It wants to get close to attack, but once it's attacked, it doesn't want to be close anymore. It wants to get away. So I'm going to just say we could either reposition it like 1, 2, 3. So back to where it was. We can have it go 1, 2. Well, actually, technically, you can even go over impassable terrain. You could. We just can't move it diagonally, but I can move like 1 and then 2 and then 3. So there's not. I mean, there's not many places that we can't get to, regardless. But we'll just back him up essentially to the wall and say he wants to get as far away thematically from us as possible. So it's just harder for range shots to make it. Although technically, now that I think about it, he would also be wise enough to possibly go or run up over top of the column, because he knows that Jin is a ranged character and that would cap her from being able to hit him. So maybe instead he would actually go this way, maybe 1 over here, and let me think about this. So this would be 1, 2. Am I doing that right? Let's see. 1, 2, and 3. I guess that's as good as he could go, which is pretty good. That would be a good angle. He's got the walls to cover him, essentially, so Jim wouldn't be able to actually hit him. Actually, well, he probably would a little bit. It'd be an interesting spot for him to sit for sure, but we'll put him there and say that he stopped his activation there. So now we're going to go ahead and just say we're finished off with him. Sometimes a hero just needs to move a space or 2 to get next to a crate or get in line of sight to an enemy, which makes a move action less than ideal. Heroes always have the inherent ability to suffer 1 strain to gain 1 movement point during their activation. So this is a really cool additional learning here, is that remember that strain that we can take for additional reasons. Now it's telling us that if we want additional movement on the hero's turn, we can suffer additional strain, and by taking 1 extra strain token, it allows you to take 1 extra movement, which can be really handy, whether trying to get behind cover, get closer to a crate, get away from a monster, whatever you need to do. It also says you can do this up to twice per activation. So this is an invaluable tool for saving a hero's actions, or for more important uses like attacking or interacting. So again, if you're trying to get away from somebody, let's say Vader showed up or somebody really nasty showed up and you don't want to be in his range, you know, using that extra strain to get around a corner and provide yourself some cover may be worth taking those 2 strain in order to do that. So something to keep in mind, at least going forward. Now, for now, at least for us, we're not going to bother, because we're right now technically the Nextu's activating, but it's letting us know for this next activation for our heroes, you know, you can do that. So this is something else to keep in mind. With many abilities that require suffering strain, heroes can quickly find themselves with strain equal to their endurance. This is where things get nasty. So if your strain ever actually matches your endurance, so if Jim was to hit 4 endurance by taking 2 more strain, giving her a total of 4, that would be bad. And to remove the strain, heroes need to perform a rest action. When a hero rests, that hero removes all the strain from its hero sheet. But the important thing is, it says here, this app changes the rules for resting from those presented in the rules reference guide. So resting in Legends of the Alliance does not allow a hero to recover damage. Recovering damage will be discussed later in this tutorial. So you can actually take a rest action, and as taking a rest action, you can then recover or remove all strain from the hero's sheet. Very cool, but remember, using a whole action from the activation, that can be very costly. So we'll hit continue on here. There is one other way that heroes can remove strain. When a hero is attacking, that hero can spend 1 surge result to remove 1 strain from its hero sheet. This can be done even if the attack misses. A hero may only do this once per attack. That's really cool. So you're allowed to spend one surge result that you rolled. So let's say hypothetically Jin had rolled this. Let's just say actually she landed, you know, a surge here. So she's got one of the surges and the other one didn't have any. Let's say hypothetically she doesn't use any of the surges for additional damage, or actually let's say her shot was perfect and she got what she needed to kill it. She just had the additional surge to use. If she had it, she could choose to spend it by taking a strain token away. Pretty handy if you ask me, and could prevent you from actually having to take a rest action, which would then again take away from the things you can do on your activation. So that's pretty handy. This can even be done if the attack misses. That's something to definitely make aware, is that your attack doesn't even have to land for you to be able to do this surge. And here can only do it once per attack. And that's it. And it's right back to us again. So let's go ahead and activate... I don't know. I think I want to get Jin in there to make some shots happen. She's going to have to get close, as well as Garkin. Both of them are going to actually have to use some move activations as well as then attack to try to take this thing down. So this is going to be a little bit nasty. Now let's take a look at their abilities here to see if there is... Oh, now here's something that I just noticed. Now, technically, in the last attack, this is something I want to make mention of. When this creature was actually here, I did have the ability, when this figure activated, if I had chosen to use Jin's quick draw ability, which would have given her 2 more strain, and then allowed me to interrupt and make an attack with the pistol. It says interrupt to perform an attack with a pistol targeting the figure. Yeah, so I could have done that. I could have done that in the last round. However, I chose not to, and one of the major reasons is because you do not want to fill up your endurance with strain tokens. I wouldn't want to have as much strain as I do have endurance, because that just leads to bad things. So I wanted to make mention that I was actually able to go ahead at that point in time when the Nexu was there, if I had have thought about it in that moment, to actually go ahead and use that quick draw ability, take 2 strain, which would have been within the boundaries of the endurance for Jin. I would have been fine. I didn't though, so we can't actually go ahead and do that now, you know, in hindsight, but it's just good to note that I could have done that. Now, the other thing to note in terms of strain, if you're not aware, if you have more strain than your endurance can actually handle, so if I had a hit 4 endurance, that'd be okay. So I could do 1 more quick draw getting me up to 4 strain, I'd be fine. However, if you ever have more strain given to you that you can't take above the limit or endurance level limit of 4, that comes to you in damage instead. So let's say, for instance, I use my quick draw like I maybe should have in the last turn there, or last activation. I would have put 2 more endurance, or 2 more strain tokens here, which would have put me up to my limit on my endurance, and that would have been fine. But maybe the next activation, I do another quick draw. The 2 strain that I would get would actually come at me as damage. Until I start clearing those strain tokens away, that would keep happening. So it gets kind of nasty. You can't overexert yourself too much, or you're hurting yourself. But I did want to make mention that by moving this here, explain that so you guys understand. So anyway, the monster's still here. I didn't choose to use the quick shot, so we're ignoring that regardless. So at this point now, I can go ahead and decide what I want to do. So like I said, I'm activating Jin. Let's have Jin move in. So she's going to use her movement. She's got movement speed of 5, as we know. Let's get her in range here, because where she's currently sitting, she's shooting through her friend, and she can't do that. So if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's go 5. Let's put her here. We're a little crazy. We're gonna get really close with this guy. So we're gonna put her there. And then I'm going to, I'm making easy shots. I'm adjacent at this point, so I'm gonna be able to make, I'm gonna easily be able to take the hits or make the shot without having to worry about accuracy, because I'm so close. And I've used up all of my movement, so I'll have nothing remaining at the end. But let's go ahead and attack now. So we're going to take a look at the vintage blaster that she's using. So that's 2 green dice, and we know we're attacking the Nexu this time, so we've got to take the Nexu's defense die that is white. So we've got that all bundled together. The other thing to not forget about, and I'll remove these because these are his attack dice, is the cunning. When we attack him while defending, apply an extra block to the defensive rolls for each evade that he gets. So if he gets one of these evade kind of circles there, he's going to get an extra block. So it's just kind of, his defenses are a little heightened. I'm also going to do a quick check on his information to ensure I didn't miss anything here. Nope. So there's nothing here defensively besides that 1 cunning ability. So here we go. Let's see how this pans out. Come on, Jim. We need a good shot. All right, that's not bad, not bad. So he didn't roll a crazy powerful defensive die. He also didn't get his evade icon, so that's good. We got a surge. We got the range we needed of 2. We're beside him anyway, so we're okay there. We have an extra surge. So in terms of surge, I could choose to remove a strain, but I'd rather actually add an extra damage. So that's going to pump me up to 4 damage, but he blocked 1. So essentially 3 damage is going to go through. I do have an Opportunist ability that lets me move after when I make damage of 1 or more. So we'll be able to move regardless, but 3 damage is going to come through to the Nexu, so that's good. We hit him. We didn't kill him though. He has 6 health, so we're really relying here on Garkin to actually take him down, and here's hoping that that actually happens. We'll put these dice back to where they belong respectively. This Nexu has 3 damage. Well, let's put it right beside him so we know we've been hitting him from the different sides. We'll just put it around him so you can see the damage there. Okay, so now that that attack's been made, I do have the Opportunist ability that allows me to move an extra 1. I'm going to have her move back 1 into this corner, and that's where she's going to sit. And then actually, well, there's these crates over here. Maybe instead I'll have her go back over here. I want to get her... I don't know if there's a chance that we can get back over there and get those crates, but for now I'm focusing on this guy. So her activation is now done, so I'll end hers, and now we have Garkin's. Now Garkin has focused, so if we can get him close, that would be pretty cool. Now he has an endurance of 4. I have 2 on him. I could spend 2 more strain essentially to move a number of spaces up to your speed, then you may perform an attack with a weapon. I'm going to do that because I want to guarantee we can kill this thing this time. So I'm going to strain myself out by adding 2 extra strain, giving me 4 strain. I can use my movement speed of 4, which I'm going to use to go 1, and I'll put myself 2 because technically there's a red wall here. So I'm going to put myself right here, right beside him adjacent. And I'm going to hit this guy. Now, the cool thing with using charge is it says, then you may perform an attack with a weapon. I haven't even used my, well, this is an action, I should say. So this will be my first action, was to charge and make an attack. That's the benefit of the charge ability that Garkin has. So Garkin's going to also use his focus token. He's going to exchange that token for a green die, which I'm going to have to steal from Jin. He's got his Vibroax is a yellow and a red, so he's got quite a bit of dice going into this. Defensively, the Nexu gets the white die, and remember, we've got that silly evade circle result that he can potentially block with. Do I have anything else I can do here? No, nothing else is going to matter except for maybe potentially some surges if I get them. Let's see what we got here. Oh, he's blanked out. This is perfect. I think I've got him. So if we take a look at this, what I have right now is, oh wow, this is amazing. So I have a Pierce 1, which allows me to go through any defense he gets, but he has none, so that's useless for that surge. Cleave, this cleave one here would be an extra, well, that's if there's multiple characters around, so that's useless. The one thing I want to check on is in terms of suffering strain. It said that we could actually use, as we mentioned before, these surges to remove some of these particular strain tokens. I want to see if I can take more than 1. When attacking, the hero can spend a surge result to remove 1 strain. This can be done even if the attack misses. A hero may only do this once per attack. So even though I have 2 surges to spend, I can't take 2 strain away. I can only take 1 strain away. So it's a way of slowly kind of getting your strain back, even though that extra surge is going to be a waste. But essentially I got 1, 2, 3 damage coming through the Nexu. The Nexu only has 6 health, has 3 damage on him. He is dead. We have killed this gigantic thing off. That's awesome. And I still have technically an action to use with Garkin before we end the round, but I'm going to tell the app that we've killed it and see what happens from there. So this is going to sit on his, technically he's gone, so I'm just going to remove all the dice and we'll flip his card over and say he's dead. The Stormtroopers are actually dead as well. They were dead a long time ago, so both of these guys have been removed. We lose my focus green die because I only get it once. And there we go. Now we have 1 more action to use with Garkin. I'm going to send him back towards these loot boxes. But before I do that, I'm going to let the app know that we've actually killed off the Nexu. And see, 4 fame just popped in there. That was kind of cool. So it's going to make us, I guess it's going to increase our fame across the galaxy and potentially give us more of a target on our back. Garkin now is going to head this way. So we're going to have him go 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can go up to 4. He'll get to about here. And that's essentially it. That's as far as he's going to get. So we're going to end his activation, see what happens next. And what we're going to do right now, guys, is this looks really exciting, but it looks like an officer is going to show up here, right here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to start off this next segment of the third part of this Legends of the Alliance tutorial in the next video. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it thus far. We're going to pick up exactly where we are right now in the next one. So I'll see you then. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.